Hey guys, you're probably wondering, why I am not on my desk for this video. Turns out the deal was, if I'm gonna be doing stuff that doesn't involve movies, I have to be somewhere else but my desk. Apparently there's someone else right now talking about a movie that came out. Any of you heard of Frozen 2? Yeah, he's reviewing Frozen 2, and I really don't want him to do that, but he is. He's actually saying the movie sucks, and he's starting to make excuses on why the movie sucks. I don't know, really. I haven't seen Frozen 2, nor do I plan on seeing Frozen 2. What I do know is that probably needs some he has some downfalls. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about cartoons. And here's the thing we have to talk about for cartoons. Do they suck nowadays? The video I've made about do movies nowadays suck actually made no sense to people. So this time I'm going to do a different thing. Do cartoons nowadays suck? Well, I bet a lot of people are going to just quit the video and comment, yes, they do. But don't do that. Please do not do that. Instead, I'm going to explain to you what I think about that idea. Without further ado, let's begin. So first we're going to talk about kids' cartoons. Now you're probably wondering why I'm not at where I was earlier. Well, because there's another person talking about movies that wants to review it on there, and he can't. See, this room is full of people that I have to work with, and they normally help out with the script and the ideas. But now that I'm doing something else, they're going to help out with the actual movie reviewing. They're not going to post it anywhere, but they are just going to just do it for fun. I'm going to read what they say sooner or later. So anyway, let's talk about kids' cartoons. Now, let's first look at the kids' cartoons from Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon has been creating some very nice cartoons back in the days. Around the 90s, they created Nicktoons. That's what they call it. They've made Rugrats. They've made Cat Dog. They've made Ren and Stimpy, etc., etc. Yeah, so really, they've been doing good. And around the end of the 90s, they've created what now is considered the most popular kids cartoon in all of history. You know, take a guess. Just take a guess, okay? You know what I'm talking about. It's the most popular show ever. Like, I love it a lot, too. Come on, take a guess. Okay, if you can't guess and you're an idiot, then it's SpongeBob. SpongeBob has been growing so much over the years. However, around season 4, Steven Hillenburg skedaddled, and we've got episodes made by other people. But when we're at the edge point of season 9, Steven Hillenburg came back, and is back for its predecessors. However, the end of last year, Steven Hillenburg sadly passed away, so things were getting hard for SpongeBob fans. But, hold on. Well, it turns out I had to move again. I don't want to explain what's going on, but anyway, today we're going to be thinking about more about SpongeBob. So, how much has SpongeBob grew? Well, after Steven Hillenburg passed away, he had to make resignations. So the new fellas had to find ways to make their newer episodes better. Turns out they weren't better. But that isn't really because of who else is doing SpongeBob. The main reason the newer episodes aren't doing a good job is because they have more kids jokes than jokes we enjoyed in the early days of SpongeBob. Because nowadays SpongeBob has become more of a actual children's show and less for the growing audience. It's kind of why I don't really watch it as much anymore. Anyway, so let's look at Cartoon Network and see what they're doing. Cartoon Network has been doing really well over time. They created stuff like Adventure Time, Steven Universe, and all that, you know. As all the shows they've created around this decade, they've also have been creating shows that aren't very, not that great, you know. They don't really succeed. They aren't perfectly done. They make stuff that wasn't at all fun. Because before, in the early 2010s, Cartoon Network has been working out well. But around this time period, Cartoon Network's just been failing hard. But I don't really watch Cartoon Network anymore. Um, it's just that back in the days, they had shows, cartoons, that were designed and created for young kids. Nowadays, they do have that too. But it turns out they add adult jokes that aren't needed. I think that's kind of what it is. Because in Nickelodeon, kids shows that do have stuff for adults have become kids shows that are just too kiddie really to have any adult stuff. And for Cartoon Network, it's the opposite. Back then, it had kid shows that are just too kid with not many adult stuff. Now they have shows that do have adult jokes that we don't need. But you know what? I don't mind it. Why? Because Cartoon Network has that chance of problems, you know? Honestly, though, I think I'm fine with Cartoon Network not working out really well anymore. It's just, I hope something good comes out of it. I don't know what will. So, how does it feel nowadays? Well, it turns out that Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network are starting to make more and less. Back then they made more. Now they're starting to make less. Is that okay? But let's think of something else. The new stuff. Some of Nickelodeon's newest shows actually aren't that bad. Why? Because they seem to actually have some good into them. And they aren't stupid and ridiculous as some of the old shows have become. For Cartoon Network, their new shows, while aren't as entertaining as they were back then, still do have a good chance of growing really well, like those old shows did. So, the thing is, old shows that are still airing are getting bad, but new shows that come out aren't really. But that's just what we're beginning. Now let's look at the adult cartoons. We're getting into the action here. So we have two adult cartoon channels. We have Fox adult cartoon shows, and we have Adult Swim adult cartoon shows. We're going to be looking at those two in particular. We're not going to be looking at Comedy Central or any of that, simply because I kind of don't really have much to say about those as they are minors. We're going to look at the two majors, Fox and Adult Swim. Let's look at them. Let's first look at Adult Swim. Adult Swim is actually another company that airs at night after Cartoon Network does, as they've aired some adult cartoons in particular. What have they created? Well, let's look at the creations. I think their most popular creation would have to be Rick and Morty, as that show has grown for so many fellas, and a bunch of the adults who watch it just have a good relationship with it. It's based, as some of you know, it's kind of like a satirization in particular of Back to the Future, as it's about time travel, and the two characters just look. But there is difference in it. Other shows, well, there's Robot Chicken. Robot Chicken is funny. It satirizes a bunch of stuff, and I think it's a good treatment. Any other Adult Swim shows? Not many. They also have created live action adult shows, and really those shows we're not going to talk about. For Fox, they have created a lot. What have they created? They've created Bob's Burgers in particular. They've created Family Guy, and their most popular creation, The Simpsons. Man, it's just a lot. Those shows have actually gotten worse out of the years, except for Bob's Burgers. Yeah, I actually think Bob's Burgers is doing pretty well still. Even if it's not as great as I would have seen it before, I see it now as something that honestly is a good surprise to see. But Family Guy and The Simpsons have problems nowadays. It's just they're really starting to lose their minds. For Family Guy, their newer episodes are starting to get a little bit less fun and a little bit more intertextual. For The Simpsons, they've done the same thing. Back then, it was a show for all ages. Nowadays, it's a show mostly retained for adults, but honestly, for the kids stuff they have in it, just doesn't mean anything, really. It's just, you really haven't been doing very well. Family Guy has not been doing very well. But granted, I agree. I admit it. It makes sense. What about for Rick and Morty? Nah, Rick and Morty's doing pretty good still. They haven't got any problems. Robot Chicken, they kind of have good buzz because their newer episodes have started to having less adult stuff in it and starting to get a little bit more for their all ages audiences. That's what they want to do. I don't mind that, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel the same. Sometimes change isn't very fun for me, you know. So what happens with adult cartoons? Well, kind of the same with the kids cartoons. Some of the older ones suck nowadays, but the new ones that come out aren't really that horrible to think about. But yeah, I guess that's just what it is. Now, let's look at our last type of cartoons, streaming cartoons. We're gonna look at these two streaming channels in particular and their cartoons: Netflix and HBO Now. Okay, so what do these two have the feature? Well, let me explain. For Netflix, they have created lots of them cartoons. Most of them are based off of stuff. What cartoons can we talk about? Let's talk about Disenchantment. That's a show made by the same fellows who gave us Futurama and The Simpsons. And they've made Disenchantment something. It's not really something adults would find much as kids would. It's mostly for both. And besides that, Netflix has created Hitch cartoons mostly. Oh, well, there is Big Mouth and BoJack Horseman. Those are for adults, especially. But yeah, talk about that. Netflix's shows are too cool. Like their animation is either too bad or too good, and their ratings are either too inappropriate or too childish. Except for Disenchantment, like I just said. So, with that being said in particular, Netflix has been creating new ones, most in particular. Do they suck? Nah, they don't really suck. Netflix, the ones that do suck on Netflix aren't because of the age of cartoons. It's because of the mistake that would have been made anyway. It's just you just see those problems anytime anyway. So the problem with the bad Netflix cartoons are problems you would see at any point of time and doesn't really do for much. Now, what about for HBO Now? HBO got the rights to Sesame Street, but that's not a cartoon, so we're not going to talk about that. It has cartoon stuff, but something. HBO doesn't have many cartoons, but the ones it does have are kids' cartoons. HBO Now doesn't release. Do they suck? Well, I don't think I can answer that. I'm 14. I don't really in for those kids' shows. Anyway, let's conclude. The conclusion being the fact that cartoons back then and are still airing now seem to suck now, but new cartoons that came out this decade and are still going on aren't that horrible. And for those that are horrible, it isn't because of the age of cartoons. It's because of what happens with them. So you know what? I think it's fine, okay? So yeah, cartoons are fine as they are. It's just that the old ones that are still airing might need to get a chance to finish already because we don't need to see that anymore. Now, let's leave. Thanks for watching, and, what, oh, looks like my buddies are leaving. They're finally leaving, alright, bye, see ya. They're giving me a silent treatment, you know them, they don't really, well, I guess that's the video. Goodbye. Just gotta end the video. Ugh.